everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields-Milburn.
And I'm Ryan Nicodemus, and together we are the Minimalists.
We're here with Alabama.
Hi, everybody.
TK Coleman.
What it is.
We got the rest of our team here in the studio as well. And coming up today on this free public minimal episode, we're talking to a listener and a special guest. We'll introduce you in a moment, but we're talking to a listener about fear and self-doubt. We also have an outstanding lightning round segment, a live stream question, a listener tip for you, and much, much more. But you can check out the full 3-hour maximal edition of episode 382, where we answer 4 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. We also argue about an advertisement. That private podcast episode is out right now at patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free because, say it with me, y'all, advertisements suck. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or comment for our show, give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Monique.
Hi, this is Monique. I'm in Northern Nevada. I'm holding on to too much of my fantasy self, and I know that is part of the issue. I also feel like I don't have enough emotional support from my closest loved one. How can I overcome these obstacles and fears when I'm trying to live more minimal?
Joining us in the studio today to help us answer this question and many other questions is the podcaster and author, Lewis Howes, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Lewis, you've got a great show. It's called The School of Greatness. You also have a brand new book out, and it is called The Greatness Mindset. In that book, you actually talk a lot about fear.
Yes.
The fear of judgment and the fear of failure. Also, strangely, the fear of success, which I think is applicable to Monique's question here as well, because Monique is dealing with a lot of self-doubt, and she's also dealing with something she calls the fantasy self. There's nothing wrong with having dreams, obviously. As my good friend TK Coleman says, dreams don't come true, decisions do. But quite often our dreams are someone else's dreams, and we feel ashamed because we're not living up to everyone else's expectations. And I was hoping maybe you could shine a light on some of the fears that Monique is experiencing.
Well, I think she was talking about trying to connect with certain people in her life. Is that what she was saying? Like, does she want more intimate connection, or what is she wanting specifically from that question?
I think there's a fear of, there's the self-doubt.
Yep.
And there's a fantasy self. There's a self that she wants to connect with or be. There's a person that she wants to be. And as I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be a person. The question is, who wants you to be that person? Is it something you want, or is it an expectation that society has heaped onto you?
Yeah. Well, I think you become what you envision yourself being, but you must believe you're worthy of that being. And so I don't know if she wants deeper connection or intimacy or love or what she's wanting from these relationships, but a lot of the fear in intimacy in relationships is I'm not deserving and worthy of support. I'm not deserving and worthy of love, affection, intimacy. But also, in order to want that intimacy in your relationships, you've got to be willing to be vulnerable and risk humiliation, risk someone not receiving you. And that's one of the hardest things. The fear of judgment holds us back from putting ourselves out there, opening our hearts and being more vulnerable. And it is scary. For essentially 30 years of my life, I wasn't opening my heart to intimate relationships because I was afraid of other people's opinions of me. And that's when we live in more of a powerless mindset, when we are ruled by the opinions of others. I'm not saying feedback, critical coaching, that is important. But when we are defined by the opinions of others, that really holds us back from being intimate, from being vulnerable. As you guys know, the quality of your life is directly related to the quality of your relationships. And the quality of our relationships is directly related to our ability to be vulnerable with others. And every time I open up sometimes with someone in my life that I care about, it's risky, it's scary. But usually on the other side, there is a deeper connection and a deeper bond. And so we've got to be willing to own and reclaim the parts of us that we feel we lost, or we feel like we don't belong to us anymore. And when we own those things again, when we reconnect with the self that is fearful, scared, or closed off, when we realign with ourself, whether it be our younger self, our wounded self, our fearful self, and we create a new relationship with self, then we can open up and connect with others.
She brought up a point too about, I think she said her closest loved one who isn't super supportive. So I know in your book, you talk about garnering support from others. So yeah, what do you do when you have like a spouse who isn't super excited about your, in her case, her minimalist lifestyle?
Well, I think it's hard because you got to first choose properly. I mean, once you're in the relationship, if you've made the wrong choice, you've got to accept the person you're with. So that's why I made this mistake many times. I've had multiple relationships over the last 15 years, and they got to a place of a year, 2 years in where there was so much friction, but you care about the person. You love the person. You've built this life with this person. And I lacked courage in the beginning before exclusively committing in all these relationships before about asking, what are your values? What are your vision? What is your lifestyle? And lifestyle was one of the most important things, I think. I don't think opposites really, they might attract, but they don't work long term.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm interested in that way of being. You're an extreme person. You go out there, but then after 3 to 6 months, you're like, I'm a minimalist. I don't want to go live this life. Lifestyle is, you have to align. I'm not saying it has to be 100% perfect, but there's got to be alignment. If you don't want clutter and everyone else just wants to buy and fill up a space, your lifestyle doesn't align. So a lot of it is making sure you choose wisely. And then once you've chosen, accepting the person you're with. My girlfriend, when I was getting into the relationship with her, there was a couple things that, listen, I don't know if this is going to go down this path of relationships, but when I got into it, I really said, I don't want to make the same mistakes I've made in the past, which is connecting with people based on sexual chemistry and attraction, not on spiritual alignment of values, vision, and lifestyle. And so when I was dating her, I was just asking her everything, and she was asking me everything, and seeing, are we in alignment on these things? There's no right or wrong, good or bad. It doesn't mean like, hey, if you have a different lifestyle, cool. But stepping into full courage, risking it not working out, allowed us to find harmony working out together. And maybe I would have had to walk away if we didn't align. And just because you love someone doesn't mean it's going to be a life story with them.
Yeah. I love what you said about acceptance. We have an acronym TARA, and it's really advice on how to get along with someone who maybe does live a different lifestyle. So T is to tolerate. That's like step number 1. Step number 2 is to accept. And then it goes into respect and then appreciation. But when you can get to that acceptance piece, it actually will help you grow closer to someone to where you can respect or get to a point where you actually appreciate them. Yeah.
When I got into, before I committed to my girlfriend, I had to ask myself, can I fully accept who she is before I commit to her? Because she's an actress. She's like a big celebrity in Mexico. She's done 40 movies. She has kissing scenes with guys in the past. Like, these things happen. She's on set with attractive guys or whatever it is. She's got a certain lifestyle. And I had to ask myself, do I fully accept that this is who she is right now? She may be this forever. She may be this way forever. Can I accept her? And I said, okay. I had to really check in. I'm like, am I going to get jealous? Am I going to get insecure? Or can I fully accept her? And I made the decision going into the commitment to fully accept her. And I said, listen, this hasn't happened yet, at least. I said, listen, because I'm choosing to fully accept you, there's no reason why I should ever get upset at you. I may be frustrated. I may be disappointed. I may be, we may disagree on things and argue in a certain conscious way, but I should never be angry at you for who you are being, unless you are doing something out of character that is different than what you said is your values, your vision, and your lifestyle. Again, it doesn't mean I'm not going to have challenging days with you or stressful moments, but I want to create agreements that we should never scream at each other. It should never be that hard where we scream at each other. So there's no yelling. There's no raising of voices because we created alignment on our agreements. And so again, it's because I've chosen to accept her for who she is and not gotten frustrated that she does things that maybe I don't enjoy or like sometimes. I'm just like, this is who she is. I accept her. And I want to be fully accepted. I don't want you to get angry at me for my lifestyle. I don't want you to change me. You guys have the whole thing. What does it change? You can't change the people around you, but can change the people around you, or choose to accept the people for who they are and don't change them. Once you accept them, you don't have to change people.
Yeah.
What I see in that is the willingness to take a risk.
100%.
I think communication isn't just about getting it right. It's also about embarking on that journey of discovering what I need to know in order to make a healthy relationship possible. And sometimes when we like have vulnerabilities or needs, we don't say those things because we're afraid the other person's going to respond in an unkind way. And then we end up creating what one writer calls a self-fulfilling idiocy. That's when you assume that another person's response to you is going to be idiotic and insensitive. And so you proceed to react to them as if they are already that. And so you create an outcome that is energetically identical to them being idiotic and insensitive. And in a safe, healthy relationship, you got to be comfortable opening up your heart and saying, this is what I need. And if you don't know if that's possible for you, it's worth finding out, even if that process is uncomfortable. And so one thing I would say, Monique, is if you want to connect with your partner and you need more support, you got to express it if for no other reason that you need to know where you stand in your relationship when it comes to getting the support. And what I would do is instead of just saying, I need your support, I would write down a few specific manifestations of what support looks like for me. And I would articulate that, hey, it's my goal to get to bed by 9 o'clock every night. Would you mind helping, nudge me in that direction? Hey, it's my goal to sign up for this painting class by the end of the month. Would you mind checking in on me to just hold me accountable to that? What does support look like? Don't assume that they know what that means for you. Spell it out, ask them in a form of a request, and see where that takes you.
Yeah, for me, it's all about agreements. Early in the relationship with Martha, my girlfriend, there was a couple nights where she had some concerns on her mind, and she would bring them up at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. After my head's already down, I'm half asleep, and she starts talking. I don't know if the ladies listening can connect with that, where you ever bring up something on your mind to your partner late at night. And after a few nights, one night we were just up for hours talking about something. Again, we weren't screaming, but we were just kind of going through some stuff. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. We need to create a new agreement because I want to best serve you with my energy. I want to be present with you. And you're not setting me up for success when we have a conversation after 11 o'clock or midnight when I'm half asleep. And so let's create an agreement where we don't have these challenging conversations once we're in bed or before, after 10 o'clock at night. There is no challenging conversations. Set us up for success so we can do it in a more conscious, loving way and find more resolution around that. So it's just creating agreements and asking for those things with your partner.
Yeah.
Wow.
Makes a lot of sense.
So what you did is you basically asked for support from your partner and you're saying, hey, I want to be the best version of myself around you. So here's the support I need to be the best version of myself. What a great way to try to form one of those agreements.
Well, it's thinking about I want you to have everything you need. But in order to do that, you can't bring this up at midnight, when I'm half asleep. I can't, otherwise I have to turn the lights back on and sit up and be present. And then we go to 1:30 and then we both lose sleep. Yeah. So let's just talk about it tomorrow or talk about it before 10. Wait, do it before bed. You know what I mean? And I think it's created a lot more harmony.
Yeah.
Again, my goal is to find more peace and harmony in my life so that I can draw back the energy to me and use it towards being better every single day. Use it towards my mission. Use it towards being present with my friends. Use it towards my workouts. It's not about good and bad, right and wrong. This is not a judgment. It's about what is more effective. Yeah. What is more useful in your life.
I love what you're both talking about here because I'm hearing the boundaries piece of it, and that helps eliminate fears, and also the specificity. You're talking about support. Support can be really nebulous, as TK highlighted. I need you to support me more, Ryan. What does that mean? Well, I don't know, but do it.
I just don't feel supported.
Right. Yeah. And that feeling is not wrong.
Right.
But our desire to be supported then creates a thought that creates the fear. And so I want to circle back to the fear component of this because fear tends to be a byproduct of invented consequences. We think about all of these things. It was the Buddha who said that a wise man has no fear and is thus ultimately free. And so the no fear thing we often think of as of course, fear is just natural. Another great philosopher, 50 Cent, said that...
My favorite philosopher.
Good.
Alabama likes the juxtaposition of Buddha and 50 Cent. But 50 Cent said, fear is a choice. Danger is real.
Yep.
And so quite often what happens, we mistake the thing we're worried about. I'm worried that my partner won't support me. I'm worried that I can't get rid of my fantasy self. I'm worried that I'm going to be worried tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm worried. And we turn it into a monster. There's no real danger there. Here's the irony, though. When there is real, clear and present danger, if this room is set on fire right now, you actually don't have that kind of fear. You don't worry about the future. You take action right now. I don't have to go read the fire safety manual to figure out what's the 3 steps to put out the fire or what are the 4 things I should do to exit the room. I simply act when there is danger. And so, Lewis, I want to talk to you about fear because one of the things you talk about in the book is the fear of success. Maybe you can expand on that a bit.
Well, there's 3 main fears: the fear of failure, success, and judgment. And there's a root to each one of these fears. But when I go around and talk to people and I'll ask people in the room, like, raise your hand if you've ever been afraid of failure. And it's what causes you to not take action on writing the book you've wanted to write for 10 years or launching the show or getting out of the relationship or whatever it is. And, 78% of the room will raise their hand as a fear of failure. And I understand that. That's a lot of people's fears. When I ask people, how many here are afraid of success? Almost the exact amount raise their hand as afraid of success. And I'm like, you're here because you want to learn how to be more successful, but you're afraid of it. So why would success come to you if you're afraid of it? If you're in resistance to receiving it, why would it come to you? You're probably going to self-sabotage or abandon self in order to resist receiving it. And I never understood it because as an athlete, you played sports, right? I don't know if these guys did, but you played sports.
These guys can't hang with me.
No, you know what I'm saying? You're a hooper or what? What'd you play? What was the sport?
Basketball, man.
You know what I'm saying? When we were playing basketball growing up, if you had a good coach, he would encourage you to fail, to try.
That's right.
And you're going to miss the shot. Jordan missed, half of his shots at least? And he's one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, right?
Top 7.
Well, now that you got LeBron in the mix, I don't know. He's the leading scorer.
You don't even realize what you just brought up between these two.
LeBron is I think he's the GOAT. But I mean, hey,
we're gonna have to table that. TK's gonna get very upset.
I mean, the leading scorer. But these guys in the top of their game miss half their shots. The best baseball players they lose 70% of the time. They don't succeed, right? So they're failing more than they're succeeding, and they're the greatest of all time at only succeeding 30% of the time. So in sports, we can relate to this. Growing up, we knew that failure was the path to success. It's just the practice you got to put in to get feedback, information on how to adjust our shot, and how to dunk a little bit better. Could you dunk?
Nah, man.
No, you're a little too much shorter than that. Huh? You didn't have the hops, but it was just whatever you needed to do to learn. It was never a bad thing. It was like you're trying. As long as the attitude, the energy, and the effort is there, you're going to get better, right? So failure wasn't something I was afraid of because I knew it was a part of the path to success. It was just about getting the right feedback, watching the game film, seeing how I can improve. And success is what I always wanted, but I wanted it from a wound. I wanted it to prove people wrong. I wanted it for the 3 guys that laughed at me in the sports team early on when I wasn't good, when I was picked last, for all the girls that rejected me. I wanted to prove the world wrong. Yeah. And so I was driven to succeed, to fulfill a desire of being liked, being respected, being more powerful, or whatever it was. So when we're driven to overcome something that is a fear of ours by some other fear, typically when we receive the results, it still doesn't feel good enough. Yeah. So I would succeed in sports. I succeeded in business. And it wasn't until I hit 30 years old when I was like, why is all these goals that I'm accomplishing? I can work hard, I can accomplish goals, but I'm not feeling joyful, happy, fulfilled enough. It's because I was doing it from a wound. The fear of judgment, but I wasn't afraid to act out of the fear of success. The fear of judgment was my kryptonite. And it was the thing that I've had to learn over and over again, that this will continue to hold me back in every area of life unless I learn to embrace it, accept myself in it, and continually overcome it. And it was the opinions of other people, right? I was more afraid, so I could act, I could take action, I could succeed, but then when people would leave nasty reviews, I couldn't deal with it. I would have to defend myself at all costs. I would have to reply to people and people please. I would have to give in and do all these things so that people would like me. And at the center, the root of all these fears of what holds us back from each one of them is I am not enough. Is the feeling that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy enough, not deserving, not lovable enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, and not intelligent enough, all these different things. Yeah. And underneath that is a story, is a wound somewhere that we must heal and create new meaning around memories. A memory or multiple memories that back this belief. And when we can create new meaning, as Viktor Frankl talks about, and empower ourselves in the new meaning that supports us in overcoming these fears, that's when we can have a more fulfilling, flowing life. Yeah. And I think that's what it's about. It's just about being aware which fear is causing me to doubt myself the most. Is it supporting me? Is it useful to have this fear? Is it a danger fear, like a physical danger? Most of the time, it's not. Be prepared for physical danger. But the psychological and emotional dangers of life, judgment of other people, or whatever it might be, that is not serving you to stepping into who you're capable of being. And that's when we need to realize, like, okay, there's some healing that can be done. As Dr. John Maloney, is that his last name?
Yeah.
You guys know him well. Deloney, sorry. Yeah. Malone, I'm thinking, Alabama, I'm freaking all these, I was just with him and, his book, Own Your Past, is all about, we cannot have a great present or future unless we take full acceptance and ownership of our past. That means there's a lot of stuff that we don't want to face and address. I don't care if you've had some big traumas or little traumas. We've got to face all of it. Yeah. And we've got to create meaning from all these different moments of our past and have full claiming and ownership of it. When we do that, we can step into the things we want to create with more power and presence.
Yeah.
Ryan, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round, where we answer your questions from TikTok, because we are cool and hip and have a TikTok.
We're at The Minimalists on TikTok, also Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can follow us there with your social media questions. Now, during the lightning round, this is where we each have 60 seconds to answer your question with a short, shareable, less than 140 character response. We put the text to these minimal maxims in the show notes so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media if you'd like. You can find those show notes, by the way, over at theminimalists.com/podcasts. Alabama, who's our question from today?
This one comes from Aditya. She says, needing a thing creates worry, but doesn't that conflict with having ambition?
All right, before we put any time on the clock here, let me be clear about what this is a response to. So we put up a video on TikTok, and this is only part of it. Part of it also said that wanting a thing creates wonder. Needing the thing creates worry. And it was making that distinction. Something that Lewis was talking about with us today in our expanded conversation on the private podcast. When you get to do something, you want to do something, you feel that sense of awe, that sense of wonder. When it's like, oh, I have to do this. Well, that becomes a type of prison. And you start to worry when you've imprisoned yourself. So that was the fundamental essence of the video that this person is questioning. But then they brought in a third component, and that's that component of ambition. So Professor Sean, let's put 60 seconds on the clock for my good friend Ryan Nicodemus.
You gonna let me go first? All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
My pithy answer is this: to need a thing is to pretend you are incomplete without it. So to need something, there's nothing wrong with needing something. We would never tell people that, hey, you shouldn't need anything. It's more about when you need something, be very clear on why you need that thing. I need water. I need food. I need shelter. I need good friends in my life. Like, that's okay. But once we start to need something, we start to feel incomplete.
Oh, he did that in half the time. He just dribbled right between the legs, dunked it right over TK Coleman.
Didn't even throw a pass. I was calling for the ball. He was like,
I got this.
Well, I'm going to pass it to TK right now because he has 60 seconds to give you something pithy.
Ambition does not require attachment. Ambition is when you say, it is in accord with my highest excitement to pursue the following path. Attachment is when you say, and if I fail, I'm going to hate myself and hate everybody else for not getting what I wanted. Ambition is when you say, this is the adventure that makes me come alive. Attachment is when you say, and if I don't win, then I'm not going to be well. Attachment is rooted in self-doubt. It's rooted in fear and mistrust. Ambition, in its unhealthy mode of expression, can be rooted in those things, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to pursue a life you love from a place of hating where you are now. Ambition, when healthfully expressed, can simply be a playful and joyful expression of your enthusiasm for possibility. You can go after something not because you hate yourself and you hate your life, but simply because you enjoy the creative process and all of the beauty that it brings.
I love it, man. I feel like we should have a little snapping sound effect that Mahalik should put in. I loved how Lewis Howes was doing that.
You can give me 60 seconds. Ryan, I went back to the vault for this one. 2011, our first book, Minimalism, Live a Meaningful Life. There's a line in that book, and it is this: it is not ambition that sets a man apart. It is the distance he is prepared to go. Now, obviously, that's gender neutral, woman apart, person apart. It's not ambition. In fact, ambition ends up being a byproduct of the distance you are prepared to go. If you find something truly compelling, the way that Lewis Howes found handball compelling or salsa dancing compelling, these things that he talked about on the private podcast, he found them so compelling, he didn't need ambition to do those things. He found them compelling enough to actually immerse himself in it. He was prepared to go the distance. And from an outside observer, he may look ambitious, but what he really was devoted to that particular task activity. And that is what took him the distance.
Yeah.
We'll check in with the Patreon live stream here in a moment. But first, real quick for right here, right now, here's one thing that's going on in the life of the minimalist. You know, on the private podcast, each week we do a minimalist home tour. We go into the homes of Ryan and TK and my home. We're also going to be opening up to our patrons, and we can go into some of their homes as well. If you want a sample of that, we have it up on YouTube right now. You can find it. It's called the Minimalist Living Room Tour. You can just go to minimalists.com/living room. It will take you straight there. If you want to take a look inside one of our homes, do a living room tour, and we also talk about some of the things that we own there as well. So if you want a minimalist home tour, an updated one, you can find it on our YouTube channel or just at theminimalists.com/living room.
Dude, my favorite home tour that we've done is when me and Mariah did our apartment. Have you seen that, TK?
I think I was here for that.
No, I mean, it was a couple years ago, but I mean, it was just like floating around the internet. But long story short, Mariah and I were moving, so our apartment was empty. And I got this, or maybe it was Jordan's great idea, but we had this idea like, oh, we're going to like film as if minimalists don't own anything. And it was complete satire. It was hilarious. So like, it was one of my favorite things that we've ever filmed.
He truly owned nothing. He was using his yoga mat as like a bath towel, and they were pretending they were sitting on furniture, miming, playing the piano.
Is that the one where your grandmother was like, I think you ought to let people know that's not real.
Oh, God love Grams. Yeah. She was like, I saw your video about you owning nothing. That's just not true. You own things. And I'm like, you're right.
Comedy?
Alabama, we got any comments from the live stream?
We sure do. We have a comment here from Dr. Ben. He said, I just tuned in to hear the part about dancing and looking at others instead of imagining others judging you. Great. I enjoy this a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah, Lewis was so great. You can tune into the full private podcast, see our full conversation with him. You can also check out his book. It's called The Greatness Mindset. Let's tune in to one question from the Patreon live stream.
Here's a question from Claudio. I often find myself trying to take over a struggling business, then later being afraid of having to close it down. It's like I'm always expecting to have the rug pulled out from under me. How can I unpack this fear?
So I have that fear of the rug always being pulled out from underneath of me. And for me, it roots back to childhood. It's like no matter what, like before the age of 18, before I was able to move out and like make my own decisions, something great would be happening and then something bad would accompany it. So for me, it roots back to this childhood trauma. We're like, I'm at my grandma's, it's Christmas, we're having a good time. And then I got a call from my stepdad. Hey, your mom's in jail. She got a DUI. It's like, and this is just one of many examples. And that was like the PG example that I could give, because there's so many others that I don't want to really get into. But for me, what I've realized is a couple things. Sometimes there is no rug. Like the rug is imaginary, but let's say there is something that could be swept out from underneath of you. I have to tell myself, like, hey, Ryan, your parents aren't in control anymore. Like, you are in control. You get to make the decisions. And if something happens, that's okay. But no one is going to take this rug out from underneath of you except yourself.
I think the whole world is an Etch-a-Sketch. And as soon as I realized that, I felt the same way as he did, and as Ryan did. The rug can always be swept out from under me. And it's going to be. But then when you realize it's going to be, no matter what, on a long enough timeline, that Etch-a-Sketch is going to get shooken. And as soon as you shake that Etch-a-Sketch, what happens? It's a clean start. It's fresh all over again. And so whenever I look at the world, I recognize that everything that we've done, every book that we've written, every podcast that we've done, every tour that we've done. I mean, think about even the tours that we've done, Ryan. Most of the original tour stops, we never filmed any of that.
Yeah.
It's all gone.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's all going to be gone on a long enough timeline. And at first, that's upsetting. It's depressing. But when you step back and you look at it, it's incredibly freeing, because you know that it is inevitable.
Yeah.
So why worry about the thing that's inevitable?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Sometimes our fear is a sign that there are areas where we need to actually take the reins. And sometimes our fear is a sign that there are areas where we need to let go of the need to have control, or rather that the illusion that we could have control in the first place. And I would take a look at the situations I'm in when I take over these struggling companies, and I would ask myself, all right, what are the legitimately grounded fears where there are things I need to take control of? There are things I need to prepare for and plan for. And what are those things that fall into the category of me being afraid that a comet might strike the earth in 10 seconds and take us all away? The things I can't do anything about. And let go of the things in that second category and learn from your fear as they pertain to the things in that first category. And that allows you to move forward constructively. But when you parcel them out, you can escape that sense of being ambiguously confused.
Isn't it funny how that fear that the story that we tell ourselves of things that could happen, like in a way, it's us giving ourselves certainty. It's like this, this primal thing that we've always had as humans, like to be on the lookout for predators, to be on the lookout for, dangerous waters, whatever it is. But it's like it transfers over to, oh no, what if I don't, make X amount of dollars next month? Yeah.
And the thing about fear is it never actually serves you. If you see that clear and present danger that we talked about earlier, the fear goes away and action appears. And so any fear that we have, yes, it might be a signpost. It might tell us to be more prepared for the thing. But even if you're paralyzed by fear because you're in the woods and a bear is coming after you, that fear is not serving you there either.
Right.
If you can be prepared for the danger, then perhaps you can get away from the danger. But if you're paralyzed by fear, it's actually going to do the opposite of what you're hoping that the fear will do.
Yeah.
It won't prevent the harm. It will create a bunch of harm along the way until the inevitable does happen, which, by the way, the inevitable always does happen. I want to check back in with the Patreon live stream here in a little bit, but first, Malabama, what do you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi, my name is Clara Dayhill. I'm from Amherst, Massachusetts. So I really enjoy your podcast. I am in the military. I'm a member of the Coast Guard, and I'm really liking seeing the connection between minimalism and being in the military. We have the same uniform every day, really just a basic amount of stuff, and just having that freedom of everything you need, just keeping in what we call our sea bag, which is that green military-like backpack. Thank you, and I really enjoy your podcast.
All right, that's our minimal episode for today. We'll see you on Patreon for the full 3-hour maximal edition of episode 382, which includes answers to a bunch more questions with our good friend Lewis Howes. Questions like, How do we break free from procrastination and behaviors that don't move us toward our goals? How can I move past fear and self-judgment to reach my fullest potential? Plus a million more questions. We also, this week, have a private minimalist home tour. You get to see my Spartan workspace at home, and it is aggressively minimal. We also have a new obsolete object segment. We talk about why reusable water bottles are totally obsolete. Well, maybe not totally. We can even argue about that a bit. We have an outstanding added value segment for you, one of my new favorite songs of the year, and much, much, much more of less. And if you want to hear all that, check out the Minimalist private podcast at patreon.com/theminimalist or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our archives all the way back to episode 001. And if you're still on the fence, here's a testimonial from one of our lovely Patreon supporters. Scott says, I really appreciate the discussions that happen on the private podcast, especially the episodes where you three are not in alignment and are working through your disagreements on air. It's a great demonstration of how to have a meaningful conversation without judgment or anger.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, like, I was talking to someone the other day and I was saying how we lack examples in the media of how to have a disagreement without jumping down each other's, jumping down each other's throats. So I'm so glad he said that because I think we do a good job of that too. And I wish there was more examples of that out in the world. But hey, we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think the reason we see that is because a lot of the disagreements are less about being curious towards other people's positions and the reasons behind them, and they're really battles for the moral high ground. I have the position that good people have. And I'm going to begin this conversation with you by assuming that your failure to believe my position means you're morally inferior to me. Now let's talk.
Yes, and by the way, as soon as you get up on this pedestal with me and agree with everything I say, then you too will be good. Ooh. And what a terrible way to initiate a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing we try to do is step down from those pedestals. Even when we had an argument like we did today on the private podcast about the advertisements, it was much more inquisitive. It wasn't an actual argument, and it was about getting clarity about the understanding of the other person. And as soon as we do that, there's no pedestal needed.
And not only that, man, but the problem with the moral high ground is that all of the people that are suffering and who need help, they're on the ground. And all the work that's happening to make the world better is work that's happening on the ground. But the moral high ground is appealing precisely because of that, because it allows us the appearance of virtue while also escaping the messiness and the humility that's experienced on the ground. Because you know what the hardest part about helping people is? Unlike when we're on podcasts, unlike when we're lecturing from our podiums and our pulpits, when you're helping people, you got to let them teach you. You don't present yourself to them as some savior or as some good person. You present yourself to them as a humble servant. Hey, struggling person, you educate me.
Amen.
Yeah.
Big thanks to our guest today, Lewis Howes. His new book is called The Greatness Mindset. I'm holding it up if you're watching the video version here. You can also check out his show. It's called The School of Greatness. We'll put links to both of those in the show notes. And if you leave here today with just one message, let it be this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.